All right, guys, take three. Take one, I recorded this entire video while my mic was muted. Take two, I unfortunately had completely edited and was planning on going live to the channel this morning. However, last night was the live letter, and as you more than likely know, we have had Endwalker delayed by 2 weeks. So the timelines on this have changed a little bit, which is totally fine. Not that big of a deal, honestly, in my opinion, but this is take three, so let's just get straight to it. All right, hello and everyone, welcome back to the Future Strategy Gaming channel. I'm Drew as always. We are very close to Endwalker, a little less close now with those delays. However, if you've been like me, you've been probably cramming as much as possible into these last few weeks and you get a little bit of reprieve, so that's not that bad. So this is going to be a last minute guide to your Endwalker prep. I'm going to give you a few things to pay attention to, maybe some stuff that will give you some new ideas or potentially you put in the back of your mind and is now great that it's up in the forefront. This video is broken up into 4 parts. Let's just get straight to the first part. New players. So for all the new players, you get a little bit of breathing room, but the main thing you want to do is complete that MSQ. It's going to be all the way through 5.55, and your MSQ, wherever you've put it on your screen, should say to be continued. That's how you are going to know that you have completely completed the story. So that being said, with these extra 2 weeks, one thing that Square Enix has recommended that you do in order to prepare for Endwalker is to complete both the Coils of Bahamut and the Omega Raid series. Now, those cutscenes have huge lore implications with the Endwalker 6.0 storyline, so this is a good opportunity to take those extra 2 weeks we now have and complete those raid series so you can have a little bit more in-depth knowledge on the lore. Moving on to veteran players, now we have a little bit more time to finish our relic grinds. Whatever relic grinds you're doing, maybe it's Eureka, maybe you're on the book stage of the Zodiac weapons. If you are, I feel bad for you. Or you're working on your resistance weapons. These extra 2 weeks are going to allow you some time to complete some, maybe start some other ones and get moving on those. One other thing you can do is continue to farm those mounts. All the X trials that do have mounts with them, this gives you a little bit more breathing room. The reason I always bring up mounts, especially so moving into Endwalker, is because we are getting that stat squish. We really don't know how that's going to affect, I don't know what the best phrasing is, legacy raids, old raids, old content. So that being said, now's a good opportunity to continue to utilize this time to farm those mounts and give you a little breathing room. And then the last thing for veteran players before I move into all players is going to be any last minute job leveling. We have 2 extra weeks. I personally can say that I feel great about this because there's a couple classes I really wanted to level. Now I feel like there's not as much stress and pressure and I can actually do this at a reasonable rate without burning myself out. Okay, this next section is for all players. This applies to pretty much anyone who's playing the game. First things first, make as much gil as you possibly can. Now is a good time to set a benchmark. Obviously, you have 2 extra weeks, so whatever your benchmark was with the original release date of Endwalker, now you can push that back and see if you can extend that. My goal was 10 million. I'm currently at almost 8, I believe, in total. So now I feel like it's realistic to make 2 million gil in about a month. So that's pretty good. One other thing you want to do is the role quests for whatever role you're playing. Maybe you want to do all the roles, so that way you can get your class armors. If you're interested in glamour, this is a great opportunity to push through those storylines and make sure that you can get that glam set for your class or job, excuse me. And maybe you've got other role quests that you wanted to do. Now those don't necessarily have to be on the back burner. Okay, Fantasia changes. For anyone who has been a part of other expansion drops, you might have noticed that the Mog Station has crashed before. Buy your Fantasia now. If you missed out on some of the sales, I apologize in advance. If not, you'll want to use your Fantasia prior to logging off before the Endwalker release, whether it's early access or just access to the game in general. You're going to want that Fantasia. Make sure you log off, make sure you're naked, so that way you can make those Fantasia changes, whatever your classes or your character is going to look like moving into Endwalker. This is how you want to play it, so that way you're not like, oh no, I want to buy my Fantasia 2 days into it. Well, the Mog Station's down, and that'll be a sour feeling for sure. Next thing, take some time, clean out your inventory. There's a couple of things that encompass in this category, if you will. First, you're going to want to dump all of your high quality items onto the market board that come from gathering. As you may not know, the gathering changes to high quality items no longer dropping is going to make them less popular. And that being said, with anyone who's last minute leveling crafting, take advantage of that, make some gil out of that. The other thing is make sure you go through all of your inventory spaces. That includes your inventory, your retainers inventories, which each retainer that you own, maybe it's more than the the 2 that come standard have 175 slots. That's a lot to get through. Your armoire, as well as your chocobo saddlebag, which is another 175 slots. Get through all there. Make sure that your inventory is in a good spot prior to moving into Endwalker, so that way it's not a huge cluster, a fluster cluck, and that way you can continue to accrue gear without feeling like you have space issues. Now I want to talk about boss shift for a little bit, especially with the Sage and Reaper overload that I'm expecting to see. So I personally think the first 2 weeks of Endwalker, boss shift is going to be popping. There's going to be a ton of Reapers in there, maybe a few Sages. Some Sages might have a group that they're going to grind through dungeons. What you can do is pre-gear those characters with tombstone gear. That's going to be on your screen. You'll see I'm in Rauger's Reach right now. It's going to be at this vendor right here. You can go ahead and purchase items to get either your Sage or Reaper together. The Sage is going to be obviously healing gear. The Reaper is going to be maiming gear, obviously, just so that you're paying attention. Don't buy the belts. You're not going to need them. You can't wear them. Let's talk about XP for a little bit. So a couple of these will apply directly to the Reaper or Sage, and a couple of these will apply to all. So first things first, you need to have your food. 3% doesn't seem like a lot. It adds up. So make sure you've purchased food of some kind that has an XP benefit on it. The Wanderous Tales book. Now I had originally had a different timeline, but now what you can do is you can turn this in. So the early access is going to be on the 3rd of December. You can turn this in on the 30th and purchase your next book, or receive your next book, and then have that completed and ready to go, so that on the 3rd you can turn that in. If you're planning on leveling or Sage or Reaper right out the gate, this is an easy way to get half of level 70 completed immediately. Now with early access being on the 3rd, another thing I push towards people is the challenge log. That'll reset on the 30th. What you should do, especially if you're going to be using the Sage or the Reaper, you'll want to 90% is just a baseline number. It doesn't exactly line up with everything, but 90% complete it. Let me show you what I mean. Your challenge log right here, you'll see that you have 3 duty roulettes and then 5 dungeons in total to complete. Do 2 and do 4, so that way what happens is when you complete that 5th one using your Sage or Reaper, you get the bonus on that character. So you can complete those in the couple of days before the release itself, and that'll give you the opportunity to get some quick XP. The Pixie dailies, especially since Sage and Reaper start at level 70, you can go ahead and pick those up right away when you first log in and get those completed. All 3 Pixie dailies take between 5 and 8 minutes in total, depending on how quickly, if you have the riding map for the area, and they're worth essentially the equivalent of 1 Holminster switch worth of XP. It's for 3 to 5 minutes. That's a no-brainer. Definitely going to want to do that. And last thing I always talk about on XP is to start building your rested experience points now. Now within Final Fantasy XIV, 96 hours is the amount of time it takes to get the maximum amount of rested XP allowed by the game. 96 hours breaks down to 4 days. So if you are planning on taking a break, making sure you log out by an Aetheryte Crystal on the 29th before we head into maintenance, and then don't play until release, you'll have that full amount of rested XP. Something I plan on doing, and if it is important to you, it's something you should plan on doing as well. Now, another tip for all players is to gear your character to a comfortable item level. We've got some time, obviously, before the release. Whatever your benchmark is, now is the time to get it. I personally think if you have the gil for it, 510 is a great benchmark to get to. You can purchase all that off the market board, 510 crafted gear. I think that is plenty moving into it. Me personally, I think 495, where the expert roulettes start, is plenty. But to each their own. I would say as a baseline 495, you're going to be replacing the gear anyway, but to give you a little bit of an advantage and to make it a little bit easier when you're fighting mobs come Endwalker, 495 and above I think is the best place to start. Last thing for all players, everyone, and this is mostly for in-game. We'll talk about some outside of game prep next. Turn off your chat. That includes /say, /yell, /shout, and another one that people actually forget a lot is titles. I'll explain it, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, so if you're not to this part in the story of Heavensward, mute for the next 20 seconds. I don't know if you guys remember when Heavensward came out and the Nidhogg Slayer title came out. I mean, that's a huge spoiler, and this is the internet, so you can unmute now. I'll put that on screen. Titles for sure, and the /say, shout, and yell. This is the internet. People will spoil things for you. Put yourself in a position so that you can't get spoiled. Make sure that you're in a good spot. Let's talk about outside of game prep. Now, I've been a part of a couple of different expansion launches, I guess is the best way to explain it. I've been a part of Heavensward. I've also multiple different WoW expansions, I can definitely recommend the following tips to you to do outside of game. So now with the delay, it's not going to affect Thanksgiving, so you'll have that opportunity to yourself. But meal prepping for a few days is very critical. I have gone 10 to 16 hours on my worst day without eating because I've just been so engrossed within an expansion. Now you can do some meal prep. I push people towards crock-pot meals or instant pot meals, and that's because they can do a set it and forget it. You can also freeze them, which I think is fantastic. But even if you don't have a crock pot or an instant pot, you can still make these meals, put them in your pot, put your burner on too low, check on it every 5 to 10 minutes to see where it's at. But this is a good opportunity to prep that stuff now, so that way you're not dealing with it. Make sure that you can eat and continue to play if that's your motive. But you definitely need to have some food available to you. You don't want to last minute call I don't know, Jimmy John's for a fucking sandwich or something. Another thing outside of game is to do your laundry and household chores. Make sure your house is clean. You know, I'm not trying to tell you how to live. This is just stuff that I do. But laundry is very important to me. I like having a fresh pair of underwear sometimes. You know, if I can step away from game for a little bit, get some water, catch a quick shower, and have some fresh laundry, I'm definitely going to side on that one. So now if you are still kind of on the fence about what your job is going to be moving into Endwalker, now's the time to research all of the job changes. Pretty much all the info's out other than potencies. I wouldn't use potencies as a reason to play a class. This game is extremely balanced. That's not something you're going to want to deal with. Find one that you like. Find a job that you find interesting as well as enjoy playing, and research all the changes that are coming up right now. If you've watched any of my other videos on the channel, you know I am an Astrologian main. So I've benefited from every expansion launch because I've gotten a new class every single launch essentially, and there's always something new to relearn. My card system has changed literally every expansion, and Endwalker is no exception. So then the last couple of things I want to talk about is making a game plan for your first week, whatever that is going to be. If you're leveling Sage of Reaper first, if you're planning on focusing the MSQ, maybe you're a crafter gatherer omni crafter and you want to make sure that all that stuff is done before you even dabble in the main scenario quest. All that's fine. Different strokes for different folks, but you should have a plan going into it. I've got my plan. I know exactly how I'm going to execute it, and it allows you to kind of stay on point and make sure that you achieve your goals in a relatively quick manner. Now, the last one might seem counterintuitive, but stay off of YouTube to stay spoiler free. Seems weird from a person who's putting videos on YouTube to tell you to not watch YouTube, but much like chat in game, there are going to be spoilers on YouTube, and this channel is no exception to that. Now, with the release of Endwalker being on the 7th for everyone, not just early access, that means that I'm going to start putting quote unquote spoiler material on this channel on the 14th. I always give people a week. So that being said, you know, obviously I changed that timeline with the release date change. That being said, stay off of YouTube come that time, so that way you can stay spoiler free and get through the amount of game. Your creators aren't going anywhere. All the people that you enjoy watching aren't moving anywhere, and this is a good opportunity to make sure that you get to enjoy the story firsthand. So thank you so much for watching. This wouldn't be YouTube if I didn't ask you to like, dislike, comment down below about what some of your plans are moving into Endwalker, if any of these prep items were a big bonus tip for you, or whether or not you're disappointed that the Endwalker release got pushed back. I personally am happy that this happened for my own selfish reasons. So to each their own. Thank you so much for watching this video. You guys have a great day. I'm Drew. Take care.